So you've created so many amazing characters and places and species and technology throughout your series. Do you have a favorite? And this is gonna be a hard question, but do you have a favorite character that you've written so far? Like a story whose like a character whose story was just really fun or really meaningful to you to write?
So I think overall my favorite character is the main character of the first series, which would be Elizabeth. So you have Elizabeth set, you have her three siblings, Rebecca, Jacob, and Matthew, and then you
based
have,
off your own children.
loosely based off my own children, and then you have their parents. And I think out of all of them, although all of them are probably my favorites, my favorite four, I should say, I think Elizabeth is probably the one that I focus on the most. She is very endearing. She's very kind. She really has a firm belief of what it means to have communed with God and understand how God would like you to treat someone, you know? And I think that's really significant because one thing it shows is that you, even in the midst of trouble, I mean, she's about to go through the most horrific ordeal possible to have the battle that she has to try to win. But she goes along her life like it's just everyday and simple, you know? Yeah. And it's not that it doesn't affect her, because there's points where you see that it does affect her, but the way she handles it, the way they do stuff, and it certainly doesn't mean they're perfect in any way. They get into a lot of crazy little things that they probably shouldn't get into, and they get into trouble. But I think the way she reacts to it and the way she handles it is really kind of special. And I like to try to put that across in what they do. But there's a lot of characters that I really like. There's you have to come up with animals on another planet. Yeah. You know? And so there's a animal that's called a gorsa, which when they first see this animal, they don't really know what to call it. So human nature would probably be to name it what it looks like, you know, something that you're familiar with. And so when they're naming it, it's a rhino bear is what they look at. And then after they figure out what its behavior is, then, they add some more name to it, which is just kind of cool. And I think those things are fun. And I think there's a character, one of these, the Gorsa, that I think might end up being a really, a good character for me, or one that I really like, because it has its own personality, even though it's an animal. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. And there's an entire species of, because you have to create people. They live on planets. Yeah. Species live on the planets. And so there's an entire species that I think, that we've recently written, that I've recently written. And I think that it's also very special because of who they are, how they were introduced to God, and how they maintain that faith. Even though someone spent basically, a day with them to explain that they are connected to God, something higher than they are. And that keeps with them for a generation, and generations and generations and generations to come. And I think that's really awesome, and they keep those values.
And I know which species you're talking about, and that's probably my favorite species that you've written.
Yeah.
And my favorite character that you've written is Rebecca. He's based off of me. But